Welcome back to another episode of In the End, There's Always a Disney God. Today's episode will mostly regard around the topic of WandaVision, but before we get into that, make sure you go subscribe to my DisneyGuide.com blog site, and make sure you also go and check out my IMBD show. It is available now on IMBD, so you can have the episode guide and just be aware of what's being done on basically this series. And yeah, let's get into today's episode. Today we're going to be talking about WandaVision. Now, the reason why we're going to be talking about WandaVision is for a couple of reasons. Now, everybody knows that in WandaVision there was... I'm going to start with episode 2 because I've been sitting there speculating a lot. People were super confused around the no scene when Wanda said no and the television set literally rewinded as if it was like an actual TV. So let me explain something. When Wanda created the Hex, this sitcom reality became so real that the sitcom Hex was also generating radioactive waves to old TVs that TVs like in the 50s that you will watch sitcoms in. If you were born in the 50s, you would know what I'm talking about. It's hard to explain, but those old looking TVs that aren't flat. So though that sitcom is being projected through the radioactive waves and is being played on TV. Now, as the sitcom reality is acting out inside the Hex, that's exactly what's being broadcasted on TV. So when Wanda said no, the perspective that we saw the rewind was outside the Hex. Because obviously, I mean, it could have happened during the Hex actually, but it actually did. That's why when she said no, the television set rewinded because it was actually being broadcasted on live TV. And she's the one who's been censoring it. Just like with episode 3. As Vision, finds out more about himself or notices that things aren't as they seem, that's when Wanda creates these glitches to prevent him from acknowledging what he's already been suspecting. And in episode 4, which really kind of really pushed him over the head. Well, not episode 4, episode 5. That's what really, kind of confused him when Wanda started using her powers in public. That's when Vision really found out that things weren't wrong, or when his boss ended up telling him when he freed his boss from his suppressed personality from Wanda's control. So that's why those glitches were happening. That's why those rewinds were happening. Well, the rewind function, because I'm not gonna lie, I was totally caught off guard as well. I was totally caught off guard. I'm not even gonna lie about that. But that explains, why that was happening, or why it was happening. But at the end of the day, we all knew that Wanda was in control. It was pretty obvious. I said this, I don't know how many times. It was pretty obvious in the beginning that it was Wanda. Because how convenient could it be that after Wanda says no, all of a sudden the television set rewinds? Because it's Wanda's reality, she can manipulate time. She can manipulate anything, honestly. Reality, that's one thing I can say about reality. That's why reality is the most powerful infinity stone, because with it, you can also navigate time, because you altered it. You created it. And obviously, like in episode 6, when Wanda found out that Vision went outside the Hex, you saw how when Wanda used her powers, everything stopped, everything froze. That's why reality is one of the most powerfulest infinity stones, or one of the most powerfulest powers, because it controls not just reality, but the aspect of time as well. So that's why Wanda is increasingly getting powerful and more powerful by the second, which will most likely lead up to the events and to her villainous return in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Thank you for listening in to today's episode. Make sure you follow this podcast on both Google Podcasts and Spotify, preferably Google Podcast. And make sure you go check out the IMBD show. All you gotta do is go to imbd.com, search up In the End. There's always a Disney Guide and it'll pop up. Or you can go to disneyguide.com and it's also on that site as well. Thank you for listening in. I love you guys so much. Bye bye.